Conservative American Message, hosted by the one and only Cam Lau. It is Monday, August 12th, 2024, and you are listening to the 83rd episode of this podcast. The English playwright William Shakespeare wrote in his play Julius Caesar, "What a terrible era in which idiots govern the blind." If you support what we're doing here at the Conservative American Message, you can show us your support by giving us a 5-star rating or following and subscribing wherever you listen. To stay up to date on everything we're doing, please follow us on social media at the Conservative American Message on Instagram and Facebook. Kamala Harris announced her running mate this week. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has been chosen to help her destroy the country, and he certainly has the proper experience for it. The state of Minnesota has gotten much worse under his control. Minneapolis has earned its reputation of being worse than Chicago or Detroit. Tim Walz has been a total disaster for his entire career. He started out in the National Guard, where many who he served with have recently called him out for lying about things he did in his military career and basically calling him worthless. He was also a public school teacher who began promoting homosexuality in the classroom back in the 90s in Mankato, Minnesota. In 2005, he ran for the U.S. House of Representatives and spent over a decade in Congress. His congressional district was beginning to become more and more conservative, so seeing the writing on the wall, he made an attempt at running for governor instead. He won that seat in 2018 and stayed there ever since. His focus in political campaigns in Minnesota has been to portray himself as a moderate Democrat that the farmers can really get behind. But now that he has joined Team Kamala, he will be free to go all in on his radical agenda. From what I can tell, he cares mostly about these two key issues, abortion and LGBT stuff. But I can see why she chose him. Democrats are very racist in all actuality, and the idea of a colored woman as president does not sit well with many of them, surprisingly. She needs that moderate old white man image to get herself elected. But white and old as he may be, the people of Minnesota know just how terrible his policies truly have been. The only reason he was able to stay in power this long is due to the sheer population of the Twin Cities. Rural Minnesota has no control over their own state. Everything is dictated to them by that liberal Muslim cesspool. The most egregious mark on Tim Walz's record is the George Floyd riots. He watched and enabled his city to burn and refused to stand with his own police officers in his state. It is a classic tale of a failed Democrat governor. Of course, every other choice before Kamala was an even worse pick, so you have to give her credit there. Where she shall receive no credit whatsoever is in her refusal to even speak to the media. At the time I'm recording this, she has not taken a question in well over 2 weeks. She's the presumptive Democratic nominee for president and sitting vice president, yet she will not give the press the time of day. Can you imagine if Trump pulled such a stunt? Half of Trump's presidency was wasted away by idiotic reporters and their stupid questions. But this is the new playbook for Democrats. They've trained the media so well that the mainstream media does not even question it one bit. In fact, the AP actually defended her by claiming it was a good strategy not to talk to the press. They did the same thing with Biden for the last 4 years, so I don't know why we're surprised. While in Hollywood they say all attention is good attention, in Washington it's the exact opposite. The less you are talked about, the more popular you become. I know people personally who actually voted for Biden simply because they said they heard less about him than Trump in the news, so they assume that means that he's not as bad. Those people may seem stupid, but let's face it, most Americans are stupid. Journalists are responsible to hold Kamala Harris accountable. That's their literal job. Left or right shouldn't matter. They should be objectively scrutinizing everyone. But they are not real journalists at all. They're just a bunch of frauds. Now, the Harris campaign is trying to persuade voters in every possible way. They are absolutely desperate, and their desperation shows with their new strategy that involves paying OnlyFans influencers to become advocates for the campaign and to spread anti-Trump rhetoric. If this is how low they have to stoop to find voters, maybe they really are in some serious trouble. A gay guy on OnlyFans exposed the campaign to the New York Post. He claims he was approached by Kamala Harris's people. But get this, the gay 22-year-old on OnlyFans is actually a Trump supporter, and he told the Kamala Harris campaign to get bent. He told the New York Post in a quote that just because I do OnlyFans doesn't mean I whore out my values. I would never sell out to Kamala Harris. So even people who are literally making porn are saying that even Kamala Harris is beneath them. He provided proof that he was offered $1,500 per video to make anti-Trump content. Now, aside from the hilarity of Kamala Harris being rejected by an OnlyFans model, I would be pissed if I were a Democratic donor. If you gave money to the Biden campaign just to have him replaced by Harris, and then you find out that she's spending it on OnlyFans, I would be demanding a refund. But the people running the Democratic Party way up at the top are sick people, and this is probably just an excuse for them to use campaign funds for their own personal OnlyFans use. But that's all I have time for. Were you offended by this podcast? Good. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.